now that we've seen the near-death experience that Charlie went through just to make sure that the Eagles won, this week's It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the gang wins the big game. We get to see what happened with Frank, D, Mac, and the rest of them. And let me tell you, first, fun episode, great episode, a genuinely true love letter to the city of Philadelphia and to the Philadelphia Eagles fans. I think that's demonstrated by the great speech that Danny DeVito, Frank, gives towards the end of the episode. And I know some people, I was actually watching with, were kind of rolling their eyes. But for a show like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia that can be seen as being rude and crude and rough, I thought this was a nice episode to remind everybody, the show really does represent the city. So 4 real interesting takeaways. That was my first one. The second one, I like the way identity was dealt with in this episode. Mac essentially was taking on the role of Dennis. There were a lot of Dennisisms that were coming out of Mac at the time about how he sees the city and why are they all screw-ups embarrassing them and everything else. So it was very interesting to see Mac take on that leader dynamic, especially during a time period when Dennis was gone. I think identity is important, that Mac is still dealing with coming out and what it means to be gay as a gay man, not just within the group, because I think that's good, but in regards to his own life. And the preview is a spoiler for next week. We know that gets addressed, but I thought that was an interesting thing we can see kind of boiling in the background also. Philly fans, this idea of like Philly fans being something they're not, and the idea of embracing who they are, warts and all. And I just love the fact that you had Frank and D and Mac dealing with almost a subgroup mini worst distilled version of them, of the gang. I mean, you had Jack, you had Bill, you had Gene's guy, you had Rex, you had Waitress, you had Cricket. Yeah, that was just, again, I thought that was like kind of a dark mirror reflection upon the group, and to see what it's like on the other side, essentially having to deal with themselves. Sacrifice I thought was interesting. They really played upon this idea of what fans are willing to do physically and psychologically to get their team to win, to get that happy ending, to be the victors and feel like the champions even just a moment. We know what Charlie's went through. We got Cricket with nosebleeds. We got D with the pink eye, which we'll get to in a second. Frank with the kidney stones. We've got Bill with the stomach issues. We've got Gene's guy getting oil in his jeans. I guess that counts. Rex getting fat, probably early onset diabetes. It was interesting how all this came into play. I also love the idea, too, that through all the superstitions, whether it's Charlie putting his leg back into the trap, whether it's Frank pushing out the kidney stone, it really looks like D was the one who won the game for everybody, and no one's even going to know it. I love the Mr. Magoo type scene where she's stumbling around, and again, we can get really deep into the themes that we've seen this season, because it is interesting that you have a lot of guys who are taking credit for it, and quietly, secretly, in ways that nobody will ever know, the woman in the gang was the one who actually got the job done. Now, I know people are going to come at me with that, but hey, go back and watch the episode. Tell me you can't see that for yourselves also. It's kind of right there. But the last thing I want to say is this was clearly a love letter to the fans of Philadelphia, and I think that's what I loved about this best. All of the footage at the end, seeing everybody celebrating. I believe that was Rob McElhenney's footage at the very, very end in the credits. Again, it was one of these things where, from an It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia standpoint, this is the happy ending that the city of Philadelphia deserves. It's not going to be all nice, and it's not going to be all namaste. It's rough, it's tough, but again, it's a celebration, and for one Super Bowl, and for one night, and for one week, and for one parade, Philadelphia rightfully got to be the champions that they were.